Desire outside the mother nature. As a fitting climax this chapter, I will introduce one of the most honest person I have ever known. If you first see him 24 years ago, a few minutes after he was born, he came into the world without any physical sign of fear, and the doctor admit when they pass for an opinion that the child might be deaf, deaf and mute, of, mute for life. I challenged the doctor opinion. I had to write the right to do so. I was the child after I too reached a decision and rendered an option by it. Express the opinion silently. In the scary of my own heart, I decided that my son would be here of speak. Nature could not send me a child without ear, but nature could not endorse me accept the reality of the affection. In my own mind, I know that my son would hear and speak how. I was sure there must be way, and I know find I would find it. I thought of the word of important emerence, emerence, emerence. The whole course of thing goes take us faith. We need only obey. There is guidance for each of us, and by listening, we shall hear the right word. The right word. Desire more than any else. I desire that my son should not be defeat mute for that desire. I never received not for a second. Many years previously I had written our only limitation are this we set up in our mind. For the first time I wonder, wondered if that statement very true. Lying on the bed in the front of me was newly born child without the nature equipment of hearing. Even though he might hear and speak, he was obviously disfigured for life. Surely this was limitation which that child had not set up in its own mind. What could I do about it? What could I do about it? Somehow I would that find a way to transplant into that child mind my own burning desire for a way and means of conveying sound to his brain without the aid of yours. As soon as the child was old enough of cooperate, I would I would fill his mind so completely without burning desire to hear the nature would by mother of here on translate into the physical reality. All the things took place in my own mind, but I spoke of into the no one every day. I even ruin, ruined the people place I had to made to myself, not accept a defeat mute for a son. As he as he grew older and being to take the notice of not of things around him, we observed that he had a silent degree of hearing when I reached the age. The age when children usually usually children usually begin t- talking talking. He made attempt to speak, but he could tell by this accent that he could hear to treating sound slightly. That was all I went to know. I was convinced con- convinced that if you could hear every even silently, he may develop still greater hearing capacity. Then sometime happen which give me hope. I come for my entirely unexpected source. We both a bacterial vector vector by control by control. I bought a control when the child heard the music for first time. He went into assess- associate and promptly appropriate appropriate the machine. He soon slow a performance for a creating record. Among them, it is long way to depreciate on the on one session. He play the piece over the hour for almost 2 hours, standing into front all the by control with the with his teeth of his did not become clear to us until yours appeared for we had never heard of the principle of born condition of sound and at that time shortly shortly after he appeared to the by control I discovered that he could hear maybe quite clearly when I spoke with my lips touching him, my straight tone or at the base of the brain. This discovery placed in placed in position the necessary media by which I began to translate into reality my boring desire to help my son to develop hearing and speech by the time He was making step at speaking cre- cretin what the outlook was for pure anchoring but desire blocked by faith. Now now no such word as impossible. Having having determined the could hear the sound of my voice plainly, I had been immediately to translate to my his mind the desire hear the speech. Soon discovered the child enjoyed bedtime stories. So I went toward creating story designed to develop him self reliance, self reliance, imagination, and a keen desire to hear and to normal. There was one story in particular, particular which I emphasize emphasize by giving it some new and dramatic coloring each time it was told. I had designed to plant in his mind the thought that his application was not liability but the asset of great value, despite the fact that all the philosophy I had to examine examine it clearly indicate that advisory every advisory bring with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. I must confess, I must confess that I had not the slight idea how that applicant could be every become the assessed. However, I continue my practice of working that philosophy in that time story of the time would become when he would find some plan by which each endgame could be made to serve some useful purpose. Reason told me plainly, plainly that there was no adequate composition for the lack of ear and nature hearing equipment. Desire blocked by faith pushed reason aside and inspired me to carry on. As I analyze the experience in retrospect, I can see now that me, son, son's faith in me had no much to do with the sudden, sudden, sudden result. He did not, he did not question any. I told him, I showed him the idea that he had just distant. distinct advice about his older brother. I heard that this advice would be reflect itself in many ways. For example, the teacher in school would be observed that the head no year and because for this the would show him special attention and that is with extraordinary kindness. They always did he mother say to that by visiting the teacher and again arguing, arguing, arguing with them to give the child the extra attention necessary. I sold him to the idea too that when he become old enough to sell newspaper, the older brother had already become a newspaper merchant. He would have the big advantage over his brother for the reason that people would pay him extra money for his wares because they could see that see that he was bright, industrious, industrious boy. Despite the fact he had no ear, he could not he could notice the grandly the child hearing was improving. Moreover, he had not the silent tendency to be self-confident because of his application applicant applicant applicants applicant when he was about the seven he was showing the past evidence that our mother to servicing his mind was burning through it for several evidence to our method of servicing his mind was bringing through it for several months. He begged for the privileging of selling newspaper, but his mother would not give his consent. She was afraid, afraid that his defiance made it use unsafe for him go on the street alone. Finally, he took matters in his own hand. One afternoon, when he was left at home with the servant, he he thought the kitchen windows sneered to ground and set out on his own. He brought 6 cents his capital from the Nike board. Some maker invest in it in paper, sold out it, reinvest reinvest it, and keep the repeating until late in the evening after balancing his content and playing back the sixth cent he had branded for his banker. He had the he had a net profit of 42 cents. When he got home that night, we found his bed asleep with money tightly clenched his head. He mother often his hand trimming the coin and cried of all things, crying over the son's past victory. Some made of in, impropriety, impropriety. My reaction was the revenge I launched heart, heartily, heartily, hotly, heartily for. I know the my advisor to plant in the child mind an attitude of faith himself. He had been useful. His mother said in this past business venture, venture a little deep boy who had gone out the street on risk his life to earn money. I was brief ambition, brief ambitious, self-reliant little businessman who stuck to himself, stuck, stuck to, stuck in himself to being increased by 100% because he had gone into business on his own, invited in, in, typed, typed his own invited and had one win, one that transaction pleased me because knew that they give the advance of the right of resource, resourcefulness that would to go with him all through life. Later event approved this to being true. When his older brother went to sometime, he would lie down on the floor, kick his feet in the air, cry for it, and I get it. When I little deaf boy went sometime, he, he would plan, plan a way to earn the money went to the buy for himself. He still follow that plan. Truly me, my own son, he taught me to any game can be converted into stepping stones on which one may climb toward the some worthy goal, unless they accept as obstacle and use as allies. That little deep boy went through thought that grade, high school and college without being able to hearing his teacher except when they shouted loudly and closed the range. He did not get at school for his depth. We would not permit him to learn the sign of language. We did not permit him to learn the sign of language. Yes, bro. Thank you.